You just have that extra like little bit in your fingers. Like the palm size is the same. Palms are basically the same size. Well, maybe a little more than palms too.
It's just the length, like.
Comes my wrist and maybe yours.
Yeah.
There's a little bit in here.
This.
There's a little like bit like this here.
Huh?
At the end.
Huh? Fucking
Fucking hell.
hell.
No, that's the angle. So right now, that's the last one. I think my left arm is bigger. Look at that lockout.
How's that looking now? Is it bright?
Go down a little bit.
There.
Look at that lockout. No red lights here.
Right. We've questions coming in already. Do you have a phone charger there?
Stay still though. And we're off the stream. The stream has been cut. It's stay still.
Are we good? Are you recording? We may as well just answer what's here, like.
Is there stuff already?
When will you do a podcast with the Irish female weightlifter Davida Nolan?
But that was going to be a serious question.
Yeah.
What Irish weightlifter are they going to say? I wonder. Have you seen Benjamin Mack 05, who got us at 275 at 15 years old? No, but you know what's concerning is someone who was born in 2005 is 15. That's even more concerning.
Please don't.
That's concerning.
That is horrendous, isn't it?
That's pretty crazy. 275. There's some horses of young lads out there.
Yeah, there are.
Why do Limerick lads grow so tall? They're a very leggy team, Irish, and they're hurling.
Yeah.
It's weird the difference of body shape for hurling and football. Football is just like little stuff here.
Well, no, football are bigger, like heavier frames. Like hurlers are
like heavy compared to.
Yeah, but hurlers tend to be lighter.
It's like 80 kilos almost. Like they're huge cunts. Like they're Jesus Christ.
Massive men.
I think it's just part of the leverages as well for swinging a hurley. You're probably seeing some kind of national selection at this stage from.
Oh yeah, the taller you are, like.
Yeah, but even swinging, I imagine there might be some advantages there potentially in terms of like the likelihood is your legs are longer.
Oh, I'd say you want shorter swings.
No, we don't
less likely to be hooked. No, should they? Every one of them can hook the length of a field anyway. No, like there's nobody playing intercounty hurling couldn't consider the length of the field.
But there's definitely some natural selection going on. With
I think taller is just better because they're better at getting the ball out of the air. Like.
Yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
What's JP feeding them? He's feeding them a load of cash every year. Is what he's feeding them.
New president of the GA as well.
Is there?
Yeah, it really is. But the
Yeah. Okay. Does each weightlifting block have a particular focus? Also, is it possible to run one block multiple times? The focus is to get better at weightlifting with all of the blocks.
Yeah.
So they're just written that you start at 1, then you go to 2, then you go to 3, then you go to 4. To be honest, we used to tell people like, oh, rerun block 1, 2, and 3 a few times if they were complete beginners. But now we have a complete beginner program, which you should just do. You should just do 12 weeks of that. So the aim of the weightlifting blocks is just to get better at weightlifting as a sport. Like
I know some other people who do programs have like
the Jack and Tan.
Hey. They have like particular focuses, you know, and there's pros and cons to that. But I suppose ultimately ours are for they can be run at any time, you know. So they do them when everyone's doing it together, you know, which is another thing you can do, which is fine. No, I'd focus on particular aspects, but we're trying to bring most aspects of people's weightlifting up as much as possible so they get better at weightlifting, essentially.
Is this Owen Mac? If this is
must be
the Owen Mac,
the original Mac.
If this is the Owen Mac, a lad who is a good friend of ours, then it means Gurf is the second best genetically talented person in this live stream for squatting.
Some imps.
You guys should raid Seb's coaches only and take over.
I feel like
we just have the University of Sikastan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, University of Sikastan. If you're wondering about back squats off 2 hour lecture, it's a great bit. Would you? Oh,
go on.
Do you guys recommend? Do you guys include a hypertrophy strength block in your weightlifting personal coaching? Strength block. Do you guys include a strength? So if it's like an hour individual personal coach, one-to-ones, some periods of training for some people will include like a GPP phase or higher volume phase in terms of like strength stuff. Mostly there will be a consistent amount of hypertrophy work throughout most people's training blocks. And then in the training blocks themselves, there's an A and B session in our weightlifting that contains a lot of hypertrophy work, and that's consistent through all those blocks. But do we ever do a specific hypertrophy block? Realistically, not unless someone's of a very high talent in terms of, they've gone to an international competition and now it's time to reset and build up again. Most people don't really need that much of a specific hypertrophy block in weightlifting. It kind of depends on the talent. But then, for the weightlifting blocks we have, they all consistently have the hypertrophy work included in them because there's, to be honest, the biggest thing you see with amateur weightlifters, so not only have they shit technique, but they are also incredibly weak, like really weak pressing, really weak legs, very shit technique. Most people are bad at everything all of the time, so it never really pays to kind of be, because most amateur weightlifters can't afford to take away the hypertrophy block, which might be like 6 to 8 weeks. So then you're deconditioning, you're detraining, you're not doing enough weightlifting in that time period. Then it takes like 4 weeks to get acclimatized to lifts again. Then we wasted basically 3 months of training there, but they're already quite a bit behind the weightlifting. So most people are so low on all of these piles as well, or these volumes, that any amount of hypertrophy and their arms would be like, Jesus Christ.
Jesus.
Fucking hell.
Jesus Christ.
So like most of the time, any additional hypertrophy would be enough to elicit some kind of growth for people. And then if you have a very young athlete, you would hope that they're talented. So a lot of times you wouldn't even need to do the hypertrophy block with them because they just respond well to training. And if you have a young athlete who does respond well to training, why would you even coach him?
Yeah, why would you?
Fucking hell.
Young athletes have no excuse really. Like if they realize they're not talented in weightlifting young enough, they should probably just give up. They should though. Like,
would you recommend visiting in Ireland?
Where would you recommend?
Oh, where? Kerry for sure, without a doubt. Kerry. People say they like Dublin.
No, don't bother.
No, but everyone who visits Dublin who's not from Ireland say they really like Dublin. So against my better judgment, I would say go visit Dublin, because
Dublin is the shit on the shoe of Ireland.
It's the worst. But everyone who visits Dublin says, no, I love Dublin.
Oh, that's lovely.
So definitely visit Kerry. Killarney's unbelievable. All of the west coast of Kerry is phenomenal. Dingle. West Cork is great as well. If you have a lot of time, you could go see Galway's fantastic place. Galway a great place to spend a weekend or two.
If I was to do a hypothetical 10-day holiday in Ireland,
a 10-day or like,
I would do a day or two in Dublin because that's where you realistically fly into. Then I would go down to Cork, maybe do like a small bit of time in Cork, then on to Kerry, do like Kerry, the Kerry Way, Killarney, then go up to Galway, a few days in Galway. So you have like 4 days in Kerry, 3 or 4 days in Galway, and then go back to Dublin and fly home.
Someone says shout out to calisthenics.
Cues for hip drive, please. I think you could really help my squad.
Yup. Drive.
Yep, drive.
Loic Jacob says, how are you lads? Are there any of your programs I could run with just kettlebells? I have 12 to 13 kilo and 4 kilo increments, but no space for bar and plates on the channel.
You have the free program that's on the website.
Actually, yeah. That's
Training at Home Block 1, Training at Home Block 2.
Yeah.
So many people ran it last year. Just go, you can download both the PDFs for free. you'll get away with nearly all of that with just kettlebell, and especially the selection kettlebells you have there.
Aubrey Emmett says,
Aubrey Emmett hit us up with a few questions in a row.
nailing them. Wondering, how do you guys think about this? You can give a good bit of this, so I'll probably make a clip of this tonight.
Go on.
So formally to answer while I'm yabbering.
Go on.
Wondering how you guys think about the distribution of training load in your programming for weightlifters. Okay, so we'll just talk about the block training at the moment. Okay, so we'll keep it to that. So basically, right, then just as we talked about funding, we just talked about this. Most people are just kind of the same. Everyone's kind of shit at everything, realistically, when people come to our training blocks. Most people just aren't good at weightlifting. They're pretty weak. They have very poor technique. They have an ability to maintain positions. They do not have good pressing strengths. They lack a lot of core strength stability. And we're not talking about giving extended planks to 300 kilo squatters and people being like, you don't need to do core work. We're talking about people who can barely squat 160 and fold like a prawn, as Sonny Webster says, in front squats, have an inability to maintain, for example, knee tracking in the snatch pull. So we're talking about most people come to weightlifting just are pretty poor at all aspects of training. So we load people with a lot of volume because obviously the answer there isn't to go with high intensities. So high intensities would make no sense because you need a certain number of repetitions and sets to elicit a positive adaptation in your training. So that goes for all aspects of the sort of skill development, their strength development, and then any kind of power and speed development in there. So they just need lots of repetitions most of the time. And thankfully for beginners and people running those training blocks, most of the time we don't need to spend 6 weeks doing 90% multiple times a week, if at all possible. Like I'm trying to do my clean and jerk at the moment. That would be unfeasible and fully unnecessary for any of the people running our weightlifting blocks. They would simply need to do lots of repetitions. And once they get enough sets and reps at like 80, 85%, they do 1 or 2 sessions at 90. And then it's like, oh, fuck. Oh, I've run a PB, you know?
Yeah.
So for most of the time, when people are that. So the distribution of loading isn't something you'd be like, okay, so there is a great study where they did 100 weightlifters and this is the loading that worked best for everyone. We've seen a lot of very poor people at weightlifting, and this is what they need, and they work really well. We also, very importantly, they're not full-time weightlifters. They're not dedicating their life to weightlifting. They've got 4 days a week. Most weightlifters have 4 sessions done by Tuesday. Wednesday morning, they've their 4th session done, for a lot of them. So you've got to be really smart with the amount of intensity and volume you give people. You want to be really selective with the amount of volume and exercise selection you're giving them. And then we also need to worry about is the level of strength work they're doing. So we need to make sure that they have good pressing strengths, they have good core strengths, they have good squatting strength, of course, and good pulling strength. So all of that is a balance. We try to give people what we know most people can handle within reason, and then still push people to their limits in some regards.
So to add on to that, right, and this is the second part of Aubrey's question. He's asking about total amount of volume devoted to the classic lifts, classic variation, strength work, and accessory work for different blocks, right? This is where I have fairly strong opinions, right? So in my opinion, for weightlifters, you have an amount that's for classical lifts, an amount that's for strength and power development work, and then an amount for accessory work. Classic variations, so I assume talking about hangs, powers, possibly snatch balances, and some complex work. In my opinion, those are only there in response to something that's going wrong. So I would never have a certain amount, whether that be 10, 20, 30% of my total training volume for any athlete devoted to that, because this is a temporary thing. This is a response to something that's happening. It's not in the overall run of things. If I was saying in general, right, most weightlifters who are training under me 1-to-1 at the moment, they probably get around 50% of their total time in training, probably 60 for some of them, is devoted to the lifts. So whether they're fixing something with the lifts or doing the actual snatch and clean and jerk. Then you get around 30 to 35% of the time is on strength work. In some people, that goes up to 40 or 45% of the time. And then your remainder is doing accessory work. And then depending on how aggressive they have to be with mobility or alterations to their mobility, that could also be put into training load due to the fact that it just takes so much time out of their week. So that would be one of the main things I'd say is that ideally, right, in the perfect case scenario, someone is strong enough, someone is powerful enough, they just do snatch, clean and jerk, and then they squat a few times a week just to maintain those good habits, right? So stuff like you see what Garth is doing now, where you see a lot of Olympians doing. In reality, what it looks like for most people is they will do 6 to 10 sets of a snatch or a clean and jerk or both. They will then do 4 to 6 sets of a squat or a pull or both. And then they will do the remaining time of their session doing midline stability work, back work, quad work, and that's kind of how it ends up being. Most of the time, the sessions don't last more than 90 minutes. In certain cases, when people are a bit more experienced and they need a bit more time, they have more ability to recover, those sessions can be stretched for longer. But that's usually how it's broken down.
How do you adjust it based on your anatomy, strength, and differences? So I think we kind of covered all that.
Yeah.
Like, so most people that run the blocks, 95% of people of them are just bad at everything, and so we just try and give as much of everything as possible with a lot of emphasis on the lifts. And then obviously the individual one-to-one coaching, you can be a lot more surgical with it, but in general it's very, very similar. Very, very similar. The main difference, honestly, between our one-to-one coaching and the blocks, not to oust yourselves here, is that the one-to-ones will obviously technique will progress much faster because they are getting feedback after every session on their technique, so progress much faster. However, loads of people who are very active in our Facebook group, people who actively get involved, make huge strides in their technique because if they post every twice a week on our Facebook live streams, we've seen lots of people make some great progress in technique and end up with very, very nice looking technique when they
good technique
when they get involved in it. So just for anyone listening, if you're on our programs, no matter what program it is, like if it's combat sports, if it's weightlifting, powerlifting, whatever it is, just get involved in the Facebook group and get involved in putting stuff there and ask your questions, and you'll get so much more out of the programs.
For those people who have been left into that group as well, it's only around 10 to 15% of the total members in the group post videos regularly. So if you're one of those people, you might only post once every 3 or 4 weeks. Get on it a small bit more, like you'll have seen the progress that certain people make within the group, and just get on it as much as you possibly can. Okay.
Patrick Briggs says, marathon training and still powerlifting. Any point shooting still for PBs, training for 8+ years? My immediate answer is no. But that's not saying you shouldn't keep training smartly but intensely. I'm trying to phrase that.
What? Right. Initially, right, Patrick.
Unless he's on a ball of clear.
Mr. Briggs.
Mr. Briggs.
So initially, right, as Gareth said, from the outset, no, it makes no sense, right? But there's a number of factors and variables here that come into play. The first variable that comes into play is how legit are the actual PBs you've hit, So if it's like, oh, I used to train while I was in college, I benched 140 kilos, I squatted 200 kilos and whatever, and then my training wasn't great, Now you could be whatever age you are. It could be 10 years later. You could know a hell of a lot more about training. You could understand yourself an awful lot better. And in that case, although the numbers might seem quite high and they might seem like, geez, they're a far way beyond where I'm at right now, they might actually be very achievable because you've upskilled yourself. You probably move better. You're probably more work capacity if you're doing some marathon running. And in that case, chasing genuine PBs is absolutely not only possible, but very, very probable. What I would say as well is, what's the point in powerlifting if you're not chasing PBs? Like, why, if you're just going to the gym to lift weights, you may as well just be doing bodybuilding, because then you'll at least get to lift weights and look good and be in good shape. If you're not chasing heavier numbers, and it doesn't have to be like all-time PBs, but all-time PBs at this body weight or in this shape, or all-time PBs while I'm running X amount of kilometers per week, you have to be chasing something. There's no point just meandering along, kind of tipping away, treading water. You'd be better off going to a step aerobics class than you would be doing powerlifting for that. So do the powerlifting training still, but make sure you've legitimate things you're pushing towards. Otherwise, you'll end up just treading water for 2.5 years. Your marathon running won't get as good as it could possibly be, and you'll do nothing with your powerlifting.
Yeah, there is exactly something to the idea of, years spent training, but then there's like, how much training did you really do in those years, Something I've been thinking about recently was kind of put into perspective how much extra time I have trained at the moment compared to how far I got with like the 155 and 90 working full time and trying to do this, was not a bad fucking place to get to, But when I look at, I finally had a chance now in the last 3 months to do like 9 or so sessions a week. And my ability to do those sessions, but be fresh for those sessions and still be fresh for work is something that is no amount of drugs could replace that for any Olympian. Like people do say they're like, oh, you look at like the Chinese lifters and you're like, it's not just the steroids. Look, steroids are a huge fucking part of it and they're absolutely integral to those successes, right? But at the same time, if everyone is taking gear and everyone is training, like those little extra things do make the difference because they give you so much momentum, the fact that I can train at like 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock or half 9 or 10 and do my squats and stuff, and then I can train again in the evening and I can get enough sleep, things like that makes so much fucking difference, like the level of training. Like I didn't really appreciate it before, but it's probably the biggest impact of my clean and jerk was that oftentimes where I do a session and I'd snatch and I'd have a great snatch session, but even up until last year, by the time I got to clean and jerk, I'd be like, fucking hell, I have clean and jerks now. And it's like, I just have no energy for them. And I thought it was just, I'm just out of fucking shape, but I wasn't out of shape because I did a lot of cardiovascular work and stuff. But the reality was just, I was up at 5 o'clock that morning, and there was like 2 hours of a total commute. So no wonder after 14 snatches, doubles, and the snatch, by the time I got to clean and jerk, I'd be like, whoa, just pretty tired. So it's, I don't even get into that. All the marathon training. Yeah. So like years spent training, but what did you do with that training in the meantime? It's definitely a big thing. So if I had a hunch too, I would say you probably could make some PBs.
Absolutely, you could.
If we went by the probability of the usual people we see.
Weighted Sum says, hey lads, I'm going to have. Is that Philippe?
Yeah.
Philippe?
Yeah. Philippe, what block are you on? You just said it, no, we'll answer. So you just say
Okay. Martin, this is a great question. I need to do some conditioning work for my upcoming off season after a long powerlifting peak. I was thinking of doing some hill sprints or something similar. What would be a good way to periodize this? A great way to periodize this is don't do hill sprints. So obviously powerlifting is a pretty intense sport. Lifting heavy weights, making big changes, training hard, training difficult sessions. And you want to go and do something similarly difficult or cool with your off season. Hill sprints aren't it for 90% of people. So hill sprints have a distinct advantage over normal running in the fact that your loading of your foot, you don't tend to get as high a reaction force with your foot landing on the ground. So you could be staying away from things like joint issues. You could be staying away from some stress fracture issues if you're a heavier athlete. So hill sprints are good for that. But for your off season, you don't need them. For your off season, what you need is to build work capacity in a general sense to start off. So it's generally some stationary bike work or normal bike work, some sort of rowing where you're kind of pulling fairly hard and the intensity level is quite high, and then some sort of high enough rep actual lifting. So squats, pulls, presses, whatever that might be. But the main thing is you start off with an aerobic base that's incredibly easy to do, and your sessions must be longer than 20 minutes. So you have to have, in order to actually train the aerobic system, you have to have prolonged bouts of exercise, and you don't get that with hill sprints. With hill sprints, you get 10 to 15 seconds of working incredibly hard, then you rest, then you work incredibly hard, then you rest. That is for a different point of training altogether. That is for an interim period between an off season and an in-season block. In your off season, if you've just done a long powerlifting peak, you're probably in bad shape. I would start by just getting on a bike, getting on a stationary bike, getting on a rowing machine, walking multiple times per day, and then making up your sessions mostly of that. You could start by doing some 400-meter runs. You could start by doing some 800-meter runs, a 5K once or twice a week. That's the kind of level of conditioning work you need to start at, not straight into hill sprints.
in one of Medea's books, right, they're talking about cardiovascular work capacity stuff in the off season. So this was in regards to weightlifters, but they also did this for general athletes. What sports do you think they were talking about? So for everyone listening, I'm going to give it just 5 seconds before or I'll give it like 10 seconds. I think think about it. So the Soviets, the R.A. Roman in one of his books, said that this cardiovascular activity was great for all athletes in a general phase, and you'll just be like, "What the fuck?" when I tell you what it was. So it's a legitimate sport. I'll give you a hint. It's in one of the Olympics. It's
Cross country skiing.
yes, well done.
Yes.
And I think it was downhill or cross country, but skiing was one.
Joe White.
He said it was great for athletes.
Joe White.
VO2 max. Like,
The O2 max in cross country skiers is the highest of any Olympic athlete.
did anyone get it? No, I've known a couple of times. Something wrong. Yeah, so skiing was one of the things. So Martin, when you're thinking about when we're doing this off season, the kind of thing we talked about in our last live stream, we're talking about top sets. It's like, so powerlifters are like, no, I'm a powerlifter. I'm not like other athletes. My sport is much different. So instead of being like, say, if you imagine concentric circles and we're in different phases, so we have like our off season, we have our kind of high volume, hypertrophy phase, and our peaking, our strength phase, and peaking phase in the middle of a little circle. Most powerlifters go this circle, this circle, this circle. Do you want to go all the way out here to the slums, out into the ghetto on these circles, and start running for your life for a little bit, and then slowly start calming down, and coming in the concentric circles, coming into your hypertrophy block. So you want to get, within reason, for a reasonable period of time, get as far away from powerlifting as you can possibly get away. Like we're talking like 3-4 weeks maximum, absolute maximum. 3 weeks would be a nice one. Like
I'd say 4 weeks.
4 weeks just to round it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, get away from powerlifting for 4 weeks. Just 4 weeks. Once a year is all you need to do this. Get so far away from powerlifting you don't even remember what a barbell in the gym looks like.
Don't wear your Juggernaut t-shirts.
Yeah.
Don't.
You put on your tap out t-shirt, go outside and fuck some people up. So get so far away from it, the hill sprints, like Fitz was saying, are too close. They're too close to the conditioning aspect. Like they're too close to the kind of power thing. Like we're talking like so far away. Like just get away from powerlifting. Forget about it. Do something that feels so different to you, like intrinsically in your head. You're like, what activity feels not like powerlifting? And that's 20 minutes on a rower, that's 30 minutes on a bike, stuff that's will benefit you in a stage you can't appreciate until you go and do it yourself and have that different feeling once you've done it. And I get the hill sprint thing because that was like the elite FTS, that was like the West Side, it was like sled drags, all great things, by the way.
Great things, but not appropriately used in this case.
Like the prowler and stuff. Mostly those lads were like 180 kilos, so any kind of cardiovascular stuff would have murdered their joints, That's why they love the prowler and stuff. But for everyone else,
Fat
bastards, really fucking get really far away from powerlifting, and it'll benefit you no end. Just for a few weeks, like let it go, bro.
If I was just to tell you a session to do twice a week, get on a rowing machine, find a pace that's almost conversational. So not that you could maintain a conversation the entire time you're rowing, but it's just above that. So somebody came over, you'd be able to say, yeah, I'm just doing some rowing, and you can kind of go back into the cave. Get away from me. Get away from me. But that's the kind of pace you want. And you do 15 minutes on, 2 minutes off for 3 rounds. You can leave the gym in less than an hour, and you'll have some great. Are you responding to Eugene Poone's comment?
I didn't see that.
You'll have some good cardiovascular stuff after that. Eugene wants to know, it's his second live stream asking for Dara arm versus girth leg measure off.
That can't be right. You must get that mixed up.
Surely that's mixed up.
Scott says, Girth, what are your feelings? This is what you're laughing at a minute ago.
Yeah.
On Seb from Weightlifting House challenge you to a no-holds-barred cage match for fits and marriage. Honestly, Scott.
Did he do it?
No.
Seb actually
No. I would say this with no undue, ego, but I would fuck Seb up so hard. Like, we're talking, I would make bits of Seb. Zach, that would be a little bit different. I think we'd be a little bit more of a contest. But with Seb, I would just honestly, Seb would fold like a wet rag. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. I wouldn't feel good about it.
No.
I wouldn't feel good about Seb, because I like Seb too much,
No, he's a nice guy,
Yeah. But,
Seb could have some, cheeky little karate moves,
You hire someone else,
Seb could be training Krav Maga.
Hey, how to overcome looking like a knob practicing weight drills for technique in a public gym as opposed to just humping a barbell? That's an interesting question. I don't think I've ever had that before.
I would say if you're humping a barbell, you're probably making too much contact with the hip, and that's why you look like a knob.
I think you just have to say, most people in the gym don't care about what you're doing.
No.
Most people haven't the fucking clue what they're doing there. I'd actually forgotten that because I had trained in the commercial gym so long regularly. The training in the fly fit in the city, the level of insanity, I just want to know what people think they're doing in the gym when they're doing the things they're doing. Like, I do not understand what's going on. Like, I don't know what they think they're doing.
You and them both.
One of us doesn't know what's going on, and I don't think it's me. Like, they are doing stuff where you're like, where are you getting this? Like, where are you seeing this?
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? What's happening here? Like, So I would say don't stress too much about it because the chances are no one else knows what they're doing.
Eric Ferka says, what do you two think of Canada weightlifting scene? I've no idea. I coach 2 Canadian weightlifters. They're both great guys. Is there a car crash? Gareth has some serious we don't know where it came from.
I don't know. I just got caught up with I said the car crash.
Oh my god.
Jesus Christ. No, me and Aaron.
Fucking hell.
Me and Aaron actually got that.
You actually are. You're so close.
He's a great lifter.
Great lifter.
Great
There's some really good Canadian weightlifters out there.
I feel like Aaron's snatch is going to be like he's due like a 143 with those strats. I feel like
I think 145
with like rough,
but like fresh.
Yeah, that's what I'm imagining in my head.
Fresh.
Clean and jerk. He's like he needs a time where you can just do lots of clean and jerks like and he hasn't.
At least on holidays now. He's on holidays now.
He's commitment.
Can't do clean and jerks now.
Like he needs like 3 weeks of where you can just do 160 like twice a week.
I can't believe you said the Canadian weightlifting scene's a car crash. I can't believe you said it and I didn't get it.
Yeah, that's what the most boring part is. No, Canadians are very well. Incredibly, like forget about Ireland and everyone else. And Bodie, cracking, Maud, Sharon, gold medal.
Oh my god,
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. People saying shit about like, oh, if Deng Mei was there, if Toma was there.
But they weren't.
You can't show up. And I like both those lifters and I've loads of time for Toma as well. But if you're not there, you can't win. People being like, oh, they would have won. They weren't there. So
they weren't there. You weren't there, man.
It's just a shitty thing to say as well in comments. I really don't appreciate that.
But that's the any of those people commenting are losers. Like
having private conversation, you can be like, oh, look.
Oh yeah, like we talk about people terribly in private conversations all the time.
That's all we do. I'd say really.
Yeah.
But like, look, she got a gold medal. That's all the stakes of it. So phenomenal work. It's coming on, to be fair. Bodie's a great snatcher as well. Phenomenal snatcher.
Great snatcher.
Split jerker as well.
Yeah, it's just the clean.
Yeah.
Okay, the clean. How ironic. Omar Morose says, just got back to undergraduate studies. I have less time to train for weightlifting. What is the best use of my time if I can only train 3 times a week? The best thing is to get a 4-day week program and run it 3 days a week. So if you were to buy one of our blocks, 4 days a week for 4 weeks, it will last you for over 5 weeks because you just do day 1, day 2, day 3, then you take day 4, and you do that as the first day of the week 2. You do week 1, day 4, week 2, day 1, week 3, day 1. We're all over here. But that's what you would do. You would run a normal weightlifting program, just do it 3 times a week. You don't need to change anything else. You don't need to make those sessions bigger. You don't need to put more into sessions. You don't need to squat more. You don't need to do anything like that. You just need to do normal training programs and run them as normal. Just do it 3 days a week instead of 4.
Put that pen down. Put that pen. You answer.
That's it. Yeah.
So Omar, if I was to say, for example, to give you a really basic program that I would do, it'd be the most simple thing you can imagine. So day 1 is a snatch focus day, day 2 is a clean and jerk focus day, and then day 3 would be something like primarily strength day, so strength and then like overhead stuff or more pressing, maybe a little bit more snatching, because you'd want a small bit more snatching. So we're talking like snatch on day 1, snatch pulls, maybe some back squats, maybe day 2 we're talking like clean and jerk, clean pulls and front squats, and then day 3 we're talking like split jerks or snatch balances, and maybe a little bit of snatch to start off with, or maybe some power snatch. Then we're looking at stuff like more squats, primarily the bigger squat session I would say, and then maybe some like RDLs or some other assistance work. That would be like the the basics, you know. You
knew.
Hip draft.
Hip draft.
Can a gymnast benefit from doing squats and cleans? So, absolutely would benefit from it. Absolutely would definitely benefit from squats. You know, if you look at the leg power, a lot of gymnasts need in most endeavors. Squats will make a huge difference. Not even in terms of like power development, but in terms of like stability from your balance, from your proprioception of lower body, overall body integrity. So like huge benefits from that. The cleans, yes, but if you had the time to develop them, if you had that little bit, someone who could help you, it wouldn't be high on my list to help gymnasts do cleans, for example. There's a lot of other more important stuff that you could be doing. Like you've got to, I suppose, obviously, if you are a gymnast yourself, you can appreciate how much sport-specific training gymnasts have to do. So is there a possibility that you could add in another high skill, high speed, highly fatiguing movement like cleans? Probably not. Maybe at certain points of the year for sure. But squats, for example, would be a phenomenal one. I think you just got to look at an example for what have other gymnasts done? What have some of the greatest gymnasts done to get where they are? They probably weren't doing a lot of cleans. So I'm not saying that's a good way of looking for evidence of doing a particular endeavor, but I'm just saying success does leave clues. And so if you don't have the time, someone to teach you very well, then maybe if you do have the time and you're like, oh, I can afford 2 20-minute sections in the week to do some cleans for gymnastics, then for sure, I prioritize on that list you've given, I prioritize squat for sure before I'd be looking at cleans. And obviously that's just coming from a point of view of where learning a clean, if you can't squat with consistency, then I'm probably looking at squatting first before you go learn cleans.
Right. Up next, we have Archie Joy. And he said, is it smart to do Sika squat and Sika press at the same time? Yes, Gerf still looks huge today. Of course, Gerf's still going to look huge today. Like, he was huge last week. He was huge 4 years ago. Okay, is it smart to do both at the same time? Yeah, they're both written to be run concurrently with each other, same as the pole program's written to be run with either of those and interchanged. So yeah, absolutely. Skate 961 says, any tips or cues on how to quickly switch from hook grip to full grip, the turnover and the snatch? Yeah, the main one is don't do it. You just hold on to your hook grip overhead. If it's really sore and really restrictive, you just keep holding on and try and not pay attention to it. You don't need, like, this open handsy thing is terrible to do. If it happens, it happens. But you should never be trying to actively do it.
Yeah, so like it's definitely a thing of if it happens naturally, keep it up. But if it doesn't, then I definitely wouldn't be trying to learn it, because I tried it at one stage and it is just not comfortable. It's so hard to do, and it's never gonna work out really well. So you just there's no problem keeping it. You know, there's no reason to let it go unless it's causing excruciating pain, and then I'll be looking at why is that pain happening.
There's also no advantage to doing it.
Yeah.
You know, like, okay, Swanson asked, which one of your programs do you recommend for general strength? Usually we just get people to do the off-season athlete program for 2 blocks and then start the powerlifting program, just as like a nice prep phase with some general kind of movements in it, and then they go into powerlifting and brings up their general strength very, very well. But yeah, that's what I'd recommend for most people in that situation. Any seminars coming up in Cork anytime soon? No. Well, there's none booked at the moment. We have some availability probably in like end of October, mid to mid-November. So if you have a gym in Cork and you want a seminar, give us a call. But right now there's not.
Usually says we do. Jazz Chromachu. I have tower turnover on the snatch and can't get underneath it very fast. What work would you guys recommend to help increase the getting under the bar speed? So most of the time, and it's funny, people don't often think about this, but the same muscles used in the strength for your overhead stability position, for your overhead position, are also the muscles and sequences of like biomechanics. They're also involved in turning over the barbell. So What you could do in most scenarios is work very hard in your overhead strength, and then this will both physiologically and psychologically improve your turnover. So obviously, first of all, we're on to look at how is your speed, how is your mobility, how is your technique and mobility. If your technique is off, some amount of strengthening stuff will help for sure, but you're also going to be looking for focusing on technique. And then a lot of times people have an issue getting into the barbell is because they are very tight and are immobile. So obviously their ability to get into a bottom position quickly is very restricted. So then I would look at the technique, timing, and also stability, strength work in your overhead, and that'll also improve your turnover as well.
Eugene's asking, do we do our own thumbnails? We do for some of them. The wider ones and the kind of flashier ones tend to be Alex doing them, but Garth does the other ones. How's Seb doing on the program? Seb is just a quitter and he hasn't trained in weeks. Am I correct in saying that?
I think so, but that's
we just haven't. He hasn't written back to the WhatsApps. He hasn't asked for more programming. So yeah, it appears as though Seb's a big loser, quitter.
Hot Sauce says, running my third block of rope anywhere back to back to back. Concerns? I am slightly concerned. I would definitely be looking at taking an extended break in between the second and third one, unless you've already started. Then all I can say is Godspeed and mind yourself.
I'd like to know as well, are you running the maintenance phase? So is it like 16 weeks, then 16 weeks, then 16 weeks? Or are you just doing 8 weeks, 8 weeks, 8 weeks? If it's the latter, Godspeed.
If you've successfully run it 3 times in a row, let us know, because I don't think we've seen anyone run it. No one's gone back to, I think, but a third time in a row. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. Who's next?
Okay. Erico Oliveira says, how do you guys approach GPP at the very start or before the start of a training cycle? Is it unwise to put everything else on the back burner and do a bunch of cardio to bring up fitness first? It's certainly not unwise. So, like, it's very good to come into a weightlifting block or a powerlifting block or an off-season or an in-season block with great cardiovascular fitness, right? That is a brilliant, really good situation to be in. You're really fit. It's like getting an athlete into the gym for the first time. They mightn't have weightlifted, but they're strong and they can do loads of work, right? It's easy for us to manipulate you, get you to train. You can do loads of sets at meaningful percentages. It's very, very beneficial. But for most of us, our technique and our overall approach to weightlifting isn't at the point where we can just take a big step back and not have any negatives coming from it. So I think for most people, what they should be doing is they won't be snatching and clean and jerking. They'll still be lifting weights. Or even if they are snatching and clean and jerking, it's low percentages for relatively high volume, and they're still doing all the cardio work with it. So it's not that it's a bad idea to take a full step back and do a bunch of cardio. It's a really good idea, but you will be better off to be doing all that cardio in the prep phase while you're still doing some amount of lifting.
Second there, one of those. Oh, it still works.
Sweet.
We'll tell people there just while they're on the live stream. Lads, if you want to buy a program, there's a coupon code that still works. And if you're going to buy one, we never ever do this. We've done it once in 4 years, but there was a promotion we did with Weightlifting House, and we actually meant to take off the coupon code. But if you're looking at buying a program, you can get 10% off with WH10. And I swear, like, we never
until midnight tonight.
Yeah, literally, actually, I only thought of there because someone asked about a discount. But if you want to buy a program, WH10 still gets you 10% off. That will be gone later because we were supposed to get rid of it a while ago. We just never emailed their tech guy. So after this, we're going to send an email and you'll probably get to it tomorrow afternoon. So if you're going to buy a program, WH10 will get you a discount.
That's a great idea, actually. If we could get one for the live streams.
Oh, yeah, we might actually get one for the live
little temporary one.
Yes.
Okay.
Where have we got now?
So, thoughts on a 73 kilo Indonesian 18-year-old who just clean and jerked?
Oh my gosh, Fitz, you actually have to see this. So this is a live reaction of Fitz, so this is the other Venus. You just... Holy shit.
Holy shit!
Obviously, 200 kilos is 73 as a.
Oh, it's mental.
But it's just the way he does it is it doesn't even make any sense. Where is this now? You won't believe he gets under the barbell. Hang on.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
No fucking way.
Phenomenal jerk as well. Look how wide his grip is.
Oh
Fucking
my
hell.
god.
Oh, that's crazy.
Jesus, that is.
God bless him. That's unbelievable. 200 kilos.
Fuck.
I don't know what age he is. Is he
18, did he say?
Did he say he's 18? 18. That's fucking ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Justin Harrell says, thanks for brought to the live recommendation again, a few kilo a month. That's great. I'm now starting, I am starting 9 sessions a week next program. And it's funny how you do the mental side of multiple sessions.
Say goodbye to those few kilos you gained.
Justin, I would say, unless you are in a very specific situation and you're maybe a funded athlete and you've been training for a long time, I would never go from maybe like 5 sessions to 9 in a week. Like, for example, if take what I did, it was 5 sessions a week. Then it was like I went to 1-2 days for a few weeks. Then I went to 2 days for weeks, and then I went to an extra 2 days for 3 weeks, and that'll be it for like the next 4 weeks maybe, and then I'll take a deload from training for like 2 months or so. So I would say be very careful with this, and look, try your best and do whatever it is. Your own situation. We have no idea what kind of lift you are, so just be cautious, I would say, is a big thing. In terms of the mental side, look, I'm kind of a douchebag with these kind of things, right? But if you have any problem, you shouldn't be doing it. It's no one said to you when you started lifting or any sport that it'd be easy. There's no point when someone said, this is going to be easy.
Yeah.
So then when things get difficult, you have no right to be kind of tough about things. So if it's causing any mental endeavor for you or mental issues, from my point of view, it's you just have to suck it up, or you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like if it causes you an issue, you're not cut out for it. And I'm not saying it will cause you an issue, Justin, but if it is causing you an issue, then you're just not. It's just not cut out for it. That's the way I would look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's if you're at that point, right, where you're doing 9 sessions a week, even if you're doing like 2 days on a few days a week, right, nothing else in your life exists. Like, you don't have hobbies. Your hobby is lifting. You probably don't concentrate on like Gareth's the unique case, right, where Gareth's hobby and his work and the thing he loves doing is training, right, and it's beneficial for all those that he trains loads. But you probably don't have other things. Like, you can't really have other things. You can't train 9 times a week and enjoy going out drinking with the lads every few weekends. You can't train 9 times a week and enjoy fishing or hunting or something like that. The 9 times a week thing is fully encompassing of everything. And to be honest, when I was training a lot, which was like 9 or 10 sessions a week, nothing else mattered. Like, no relationship with anyone, or relationship with friends, none of that stuff existed. None of, like, you were training, you were going to school or going to college, and then the other stuff kind of fitted in around it. But you don't have a normal life when that's going on. Like, you can't have a normal life. You shouldn't expect it. If you're training that much, that's all you should want to do. And then I would say, like, to kind of, obviously I don't echo Gareth's sentiments on this due to the fact that I work heavily in sports psychology, but if you're a non-funded or non-professional or non-full-time athlete and you're struggling with the mental side of multiple sessions per day, like, why are you doing multiple sessions per day? Like, you're a recreational athlete. If the only time I'm really worried about people, like recreational people, not being able to train enough, is they're getting less than 150 minutes of moderate to medium intensity exercise every week, and it's directly affecting their health.
Can I tell you how I think about the 9 sessions?
Go on.
I am happy that 9 sessions is what I get to do, and it's productive. I'm happy. I'm glad I get to train that much.
Yeah.
and still be productive. Because you know, like the thing when we talk about squat every day, we like it's too much, you know, but we understand what we want to do because they love training. I'm so happy that I have to train that much to want to get better. Like I'm so happy that I can go train this many times and not be called out for it by Fitz. I'm so happy that Fitz like I'm so happy that it's a situation where Fitz isn't being like, oh, you're being a fucking dumbass, you know. This is too.
But if you were doing this at any other point, I would have called you out.
Absolutely, I'm so happy. Like I'm happy. This is what it takes. Like, That's what I think about the sessions. I genuinely think this between sessions.
But nobody else in your situation.
Yeah, but like to be fair, like with this, like part of the reason for seeking strength is that I wanted to have more time to train and Fitz want to do more of his stuff. You know? You know, that was we manufactured this situation as well. You know, so it's.
Oh, it's no like this isn't a fortuitous situation.
Yeah.
This is the situation that you wanted, like Joe.
I'm so happy that 9 sessions a week is what you have to do to clean a jerk 200 plus kilos.
Like you would be disappointed if suddenly you were like, no, train once every 10 days.
No, oh my god,
you'd be so disappointed.
Give me cold sweats then.
Yeah.
Why PB not PR? Because we're not psychopaths.
Yeah, because it's your personal best. You don't have personal records for yourself.
You're not a bookie company. Like you're
no.
Company, like.
No, they're not. No.
No question. Got my last session of the press program coming on Saturday. Going off last week, I've already known I've gotten much stronger.
Yes.
Lads, if anyone's running programs, like we do really like. So in the early days of Sika, people used to always tell us about their PBs, and we're so happy to hear that. But as things got bigger, people just get their PBs. They're like, it works. And then no one tells us.
They'll email us like 3 or like 6 months later and be like, oh, I think you're running this program out. By the way, ran the squat cycle last summer and got a 25 kilo PB. And you're like, yes.
Yeah.
So do tell us, like, we do appreciate it.
Especially like Instagram and stuff that's as well.
Yeah.
You know, you tell your friends.
Is Owen okay after being called fat by one of Zach's commenters? Lads, you don't understand. Like, girlfriends, we all have a certain level of body dysmorphia. Like, nobody's truly comfortable in themselves. But you can't be saying it to girl. Like,
but like, on a level of like abuse, like, we've said this before in a podcast we did actually for the company that's podcast in the UK, right? And he was asking about like negative comments and like people who didn't grow up in Ireland don't understand the level of emotional abuse young Irish boys hurl at each other on a daily basis. There's no line that's off limit. So like there is almost nothing I'd say anyone could say in the YouTube comments in some regards where I'd be like, holy shit, what did you say? Most of the time it's like, Fitz, did you see this comment? That's
yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I know Eugene is joking, like, but it's funny like this. And it's funny when people say like honest question. I'm not
honest question. No.
Zach gets so many of those. He's just like he cracks them up. Like.
The best is like I don't mean to be offensive, but you look kind of out of shape.
Yeah.
I'm gonna sneeze now.
Don't mean to be offensive, but your squat looks like 100 kilos. Kevin saying thoughts on Zach ripped of it. I didn't get to listen to all of it. I was, you know what, I was thinking though at the start of the video, I listened to the first like 10 minutes. I prefer Zach's unscripted videos on this for some reason. It's nice there change from where he's sitting down and doing more of a longer talk, I suppose, like we do with videos. Maybe that's the biases, but these scripted videos are great. But it was a nice change of pace from him, where he was kind of talking this one out a little bit.
I haven't watched the video, so I don't know. Not a major fan of Ripple Toes. EV sounds like PP. Sure does. Okay. Enoch Crosby says he's training with one of those cheap 10 kilo weeder type bars with no rotating sleeves, dangerous for wrists and shoulders. If you're doing snatches or cleans or even jerks to an extent, I think it probably is. If it's all you have though, then just keep training. Like get strong, do good movements, build up weight over time. It will be very, very beneficial for you, you know, if it's all you have and you can't afford anything else. And like you'll see the videos of Clarence doing lifts when he was a teenager in his bedroom, getting after it with one of those, like with the rotating things on the end of it, where you like screw on your weights. I would say like just do the best of what you have. You don't need a weightlifting bar right now. If you don't have one, get a strong squat, get a strong back, plenty rows, plenty presses.
Grandma gum job.
That is grim.
Hey fellas, if I'm trying to get a bit more educated in the sports science realm without formal training, do you guys have any resources to recommend, both YouTube channels other than yours, of course? Do you have any?
Depends what area of sports science. Like sports science is a very broad area. I certainly wouldn't get a sports science book because it would be like getting a book on
Science.
Science.
Yeah.
Yeah, like sports science is a mixture of maths, physics, chemistry, and then those get broken down into biochemistry, organic chemistry, some amount of biomechanics, some amount of actual mechanics, psychology, sociology, pedagogy, sociopathy. There's a huge amount going on there. You know, I'd probably first, I wouldn't read a general sports science book because most of the stuff in it would be not useful for you and it would be boring. But look at an area within sports science you'd like to get into. If that was an area like sports science or biomechanics, you can get some very good texts there, and that would actually be worth reading. You probably learn things from it.
Jake Highwest says, "Ever like the video? Please do, lads." Bro, what is that loud green drink you got? That is just an apple green tea, like one of the bubble teas.
It's a bubble tea. He's a fancy hipster. Oh yeah, a liter of Irish milk that's got 2 scoops of gold standard chocolate, mint chocolate whey.
Hey.
Well, hey.
So Chris Dan says, "What allows Stephen Holm to jump so high, and how would one train this?" I don't know who Stephen Holm is. Let's see what the jump is. Is he a soccer back? No, he's obviously jumping hurdles. Let's have a look at this. Steve Holm jumps hurdles. I'm gonna say genetics.
Yeah. So holy shit, he's like a fucking
hell.
springbok.
Mother of God.
Interesting thing, right? If you look at jumps and jump performance, most of the prowess you see isn't really trained. Like when you look at like high jump records and things like that. But then when you look at applied or non-applied, so like laboratory based sports science, they use drop jump height and standing jump height as a measure of how much fast twitch to slow twitch fiber you have. So if you've got a study that doesn't have a lot of money and they can't do muscle biopsies, or it has to be very non-invasive, they want to get a rough idea of like, okay, out of these 300 people, who has a higher proportion of fast twitch, who has a higher proportion of slow twitch. They'll do a standing, holy shit, those jumps are amazing.
What the fuck?
They will do standing broad jumps, so they'll do a drop jump, and they'll be able to derive out from that with not a great degree of accuracy, but they'll have a good idea of what proportion of slow twitch to fast twitch you have. So most of the time you see people who are very, very good jumpers, it's genetics or just expressing their genetics very well. Holy shit, look at the height of them.
So like the thing with jumping ability is like you do see, even when you train people and you see natural talents, some people can just jump a lot higher than other people can initially from day one. And it doesn't see, so you can certainly train to get better at jumping for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, and you can train, but you'll never really become, if you're not amazing at the start, you'll never become more amazing by the end of your jumping, you know? It seems heavily predominantly based on the genetics you were born with, and you know, then the lesser degree training in your body weight and kind of experience with plyometrics. But you really do see jumping ability as just something that is bestowed by the universe. It's kind of hard to. It's a funny one because jumping is such an obvious thing, you know. Like it's, you either do it or you don't do it, you know. So like when we're looking at it objectively, you don't really see the steps in between someone box jumping belly button height to kind of shoulder height. Like you don't see the progression, because when you see like Ilya Alien getting 242, and we know it like 10 years old, he's jerking like 9 kilos or something, you know, and you can kind of see that visualization. Yeah. Whereas the jumping, it's just like fucking hell, he's jumping already, you know. So it's I think that's the funny one with that. And you could make that mistake of thinking, I can train my jump to that, but in the same way you couldn't train your clean and jerk 242. You can't train your jump to those kind of things. No, you can certainly train your jump to get better, but there's levels to it, and some people say, "I'm not going to run a 5K in a record time." So many other people just can't jump as high as this hell of a man.
Yeah. Remember the second last year I played rugby, there was a guy called Tom played in our team. And his jump was just like a float.
Yeah, it's floating.
It's floating. Like, it was so weird. I was always good at box jumps. Like, that was one of the only things I was good at because it was fairly light. And I used squat a bit, you know. But Jesus, the difference in his jump, it was like you were doing two completely different movements. Like, they weren't the same thing. Like, okay. G'day, gents. Do you have any thoughts?
Like, 2 questions.
Oh, I saw sprinting, but anyway. I'm a calisthenics guy. Should I start with Smith machine squat or straight into back squat? Straight into back squat, absolutely. They're two completely different things. It's like, should I try and drive a car? Or should I play PlayStation loads beforehand?
Hey,
PlayStation. I just hate computer games.
Monner says, "Hi guys, what would you?" Oh, hang on. Did I skip something? Yeah, no, I didn't. Hi guys, what would you set for building speed endurance as a sprinter? Over to you, Dara.
I first suggest getting a sprinting coach, because your speed endurance can be breaking down due to a technical aspect. More than likely, when you see people who can't maintain their top speed for a long time, they have very poor muscular endurance and they have very poor aerobic capacities. So unless you're a fairly high level sprinter, I would look at increasing your work capacity to start off with. You might need to spend longer in prep phases than you would usually. So when you get normal athletes, so say if you're a soccer player and we're testing their runs and they might have very good acceleration, but they can't maintain their speed for a long time, you then look at spending longer in a prep phase than you traditionally would. So their prep phase might not only be longer, but it might be more intense. They might do a lot more work during their prep phase. They might do less specific work during their prep phase. So that's the first thing, right? You need to make sure that you're capable of maintaining a certain output for that long. If it's the opposite way around, right? If it's an acceleration phase, you can't get up the top speed. It's really simple. You make the person stronger and then you increase their power outputs. But in the case of speed endurance, there are a number of things. So not only work capacity, could be technical aspects of it. But that's what I would start with. I'd start by getting a sprinting coach who's qualified, and then I'd look at, okay, what's happening here? Is it my technique breaks down, or is it that I don't have enough work capacity, or whatever it is? And then I go and attack that. It's very likely, unless you're like a fairly high level sprinter, it's very likely your work capacity is too low, and then you need 8 or 12 weeks of pain.
These are my light glasses. Look at me, I'm Dara.
Did you write something together?
Yeah, I did. Did you see it though?
No.
Good day, gents. Do you have any thoughts on combining strength training and endurance training? So I assume this is for the benefit of your endurance training rather than from the benefits of your strength training, because of course this is a toxic one-way relationship. In most regards, the endurance will murder your strength training in most regards. Like a certain little bit, like 2% of that endurance training will be great for your strength training, but then vice versa, it would be a better scenario. So strength training will always help your endurance work within reason, unless you get to the point where you're taking away your training time. So basically what you need to think about is how much time can you dedicate to strength training before it will negatively impact your endurance training, and then adjust that accordingly. So for sometimes that might be 2 sessions a week. Like, we're not talking about stuff like we see campaigns doing, which is, obviously ridiculous, like high rep sets. So like, look, how much time can you afford to do basic strength training? How do you feel after these sessions? Can you do 2 sessions and you can still get in your 3 main running sessions a week when you need to get them in? Or is it something like you've tried 4 and you're like, fuck me, I cannot do 4 sessions, that's way too much for my running. But if you scale it back. So main thing I think is looking at how much strength training you can do. And the likelihood is less is probably more, but there's probably huge benefits you will get from your endurance training from your strength training. So I'd say frequency of strength training is probably the biggest thing you need to look at here, and see how much can you get away with before it starts negatively impacting you, and then start kind of adjusting the sessions. So start off real basic, very simple, less than you think you need to do, and then slowly titrate in a little more volume until you reach the point where you're like, oh, fuck.
What I would say, just the last thing I'd add on, Gareth is dead right there. The only thing that endurance training, or one of the common things you see when you add in any sort of endurance training with strength training is people don't have actual real-time metrics. So they'll be really good to track everything they do in the gym. If they're only able to squat 100 kilos today and it was 120 kilos last time, it's really easy to see the difference. With endurance training, people are like, geez, I felt like crap during that run.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, I felt terrible today when I was running. You're like, what was your times? What were your splits? How long did it take? What, like, they don't track anything, you know? They'd be like, oh, I did a 20-minute 5K, but I felt terrible. Yeah. I felt terrible. Just get some real-time data, get a stopwatch, take splits as well as all-out times, and then track that.
Okay, are we at the point where we
I think we're about to start cherry picking. Somebody wants to know where to get the Sikastan t-shirts. They'll be available hopefully at the start of September, is what it's looking like at the moment.
Gents, on the topic of rowing, how do you feel about using HR monitors to track output? Obviously, lactate test is better, but not access for the most. I do like just a simple all-out HR monitor, like a little heart rate. Yeah, I think it's good. It's good to track.
Somebody had for the running.
Enoch was, I think, a chunky monkey powerlifter.
Oh.
So Enoch, for you, if you're diligent with your metrics, so if you're tracking your heart rate and your distance and your strokes per minute, if you could, for example, keep a more consistent stroke per minute and for the same distance or something like that in less time, and ideally your heart rate would be slowly dropping with the same intensities and intervals. So I do like the idea of it. They're quite cheap, very accessible. Some of them are very good as well, you know.
I have one of them lined up. Right, I'm just going to answer the second one. So Sam Tesh asked, benefits of running linear progression as GPP for weightlifting. Think about 16 weeks of GPP training, back squats, deadlifts, and overhead press. How much weightlifting can I do without fatigue buildup? How long is a piece of string? If you're doing GPP for weightlifting, I think 16 weeks is probably too long. So you don't really need that much GPP. You just need to get in slightly better shape. If you train really hard for 6 to 8 to 10 weeks, probably 8 weeks for most people is more than sufficient. That you'll be in great general physical preparedness. But what I would say is running blocks like that with linear progression, so like picking 4 or 5 rep ranges, or probably 2 or 3 rep ranges, and increasing weight from week to week, you're leaving something behind. You're really not getting the most out of your training you possibly could, you know. Obviously, it's a GPP phase, so you'll probably be doing 12s, 10s, and 8s a lot of the time, and I assume you'll cycle through those 12, 10s, and 8s. You'll bump up weight whenever you can. There's just a better way of doing it than just pure raw linear, and you'll be able to do some weightlifting at the same time. In terms of how much weightlifting can you do with fatigue buildup or without fatigue buildup, it really does depend on you. Like, it depends how much energy you have to put into your weightlifting, how much time it takes you in the gym to lift weights well, what's your technique look like, what weights are you going to be going up to. So all of that plays into it. Yeah.
What was the question?
So benefits of running linear progression as GPP for weightlifting. Think of it doing 16 weeks of GPP, back squats, deadlifts, and overhead press. How much weightlifting can I do without?
Oh, okay. That's very Russian.
Yeah.
Bit too Russian. There's a certain amount of Russian is like, boom, great.
Yeah.
And there's too Russian, they're like, no, man, it's too late.
Yeah, come on.
So Lackey has a question there. Lackey W says, big dogs. Got a question about deloading. Do you favor traditional deloads, knocking out volume and intensity? It's never and or intensity. So our pivot weeks with new, less specific exercises, thus supposedly less fatigue. So just, we'll skip to the end of that question. New exercises are always more fatiguing. So new exercises should never be in a deload week, ever, never. There will always certainly be more fatiguing as they're new to you. So as you say, thus supposedly less fatiguing. So you might have thought about that. So just to get to the end of that one, new exercises are never a good idea for deloads. So what I do is, I do the pivot weeks, you're calling them. So that would be the kind of cyclical phases of periodization where you step back a little bit, allow for some compensation.
We're back,
sorry. So basically, I'm actually annoyed for you.
That was ringing. Okay, we're back.
So most of the time, what we're looking at is, unless someone goes, I'm feeling really beat up, or feel I'm really tired, or something coming up next week, we don't we don't do those. I don't do those deload weeks. We do use both of them. I do use those traditional deload weeks when needs be. So a lot of times that'll typically happen maybe once every 3 months. Those like aggressive, like just down weeks where someone's like, "Fuck, I need to recover," you know. And that's typically a good sign as well. When someone asks for those deload weeks, you're like in a position where it's if they start happening more commonly, where someone starts requesting them more often. So if you're like after the end of every kind of 4-week phase or every 4-week block, they're like, "Okay, I need a deload week." Then it's a great sign that the accumulation of fatigue has gotten to a point where it's probably time to go back and do like a GPP phase or take an extended, not break from training, but reset and things and start building up again and get some work capacity. What I think it's probably a sign of is, so if you imagine your fitness, so fitness would encompass everything in your training aspects. You're basically your trainability or your readiness state to do whatever your sport is. I think what the sign is when athletes keep asking for deload weeks is it's probably a sign that your general fitness.
Sign that you got them.
Yeah, it's sign that your fitness has decayed beyond the point where they're no longer able to perform. You've been too specific for too long, and so then it's probably time to reassess. The fatigue has gotten too high and the performance is probably slowly dropping, and if you keep asking for it, then it's probably a time to reset and get back to good old bit of GPPs or work capacity stuff. For good question.
Yeah,
great question. David, we will be doing we're romping around Europe again, but we'll be doing some vlogs hopefully.
Yeah. If you're in Vienna in September and you want to come to a seminar, we have a seminar in Vienna, we have a seminar in London in September, and a seminar in Edinburgh in September. Okay. Should I refrain from using straps for the snatch? Yes, you certainly should. Fraser Rankin. Is it Fraser Rankin? No, sorry, Joe Bro. Joe Bro, you absolutely should. You shouldn't be using straps for the snatch, to be honest. You'll be a better snatcher without them. I'm boiling.
I'm so happy though.
When's the shoe tier list video coming? Hopefully next week.
Lots of great questions. But
yeah. Golden, the Ministry of Clothing will be sending the Sika gear all over the world. So you'll be able to order it from anywhere. Okay.
Okay, lads. I think that's it for this week's live stream. Thanks so much for all the questions.
Yeah. If you are buying a program, buy it before the end of today and do WH10 for a little discount, a little live stream special discount. Mikey.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Holy shit, it's on.